The most common story about the origin of cold brew coffee has almost nothing to do with taste. According to a version of history repeated across coffee shops worldwide, Dutch traders operating in the 1600s needed a way to keep sailors supplied with coffee during months-long sea voyages. Without fire, without heat, and without the ability to brew anything hot on a wooden ship loaded with flammable cargo. The solution they landed on, slow steeping coffee grounds in cold water over many hours, was not designed to taste better than hot coffee. It was designed to survive a supply chain, and centuries later, it became the foundation of one of the most popular and most expensive coffee trends in the modern world. To understand why this story makes sense, you have to understand exactly how dangerous it was to brew hot beverages aboard a wooden sailing ship in the 17th century. Open flame on a vessel carrying flammable cargo, canvas sails, tar-sealed timber, and gunpowder for defense against pirates and rival colonial powers was an enormous liability. Most sailing vessels of the era severely restricted when and how open cooking fires could be used, often limiting galley operations to specific hours and requiring careful supervision, precisely because a single uncontrolled fire could destroy an entire ship and crew in open ocean, far from any possibility of rescue. Coffee, already an established and valued commodity moving along Dutch trade routes by this period, needed a brewing method compatible with those restrictions. One that did not require sustained heat or an open flame running for extended periods. Cold water extraction solved that problem directly. Coffee grounds steeped in cold or room temperature water for many hours, sometimes reportedly over the course of an entire day or more, will still extract flavor compounds and caffeine from the beans, just far more slowly than hot water does. The resulting concentrate could then be stored, diluted, and consumed without requiring active heat at the moment of preparation, making it dramatically more practical and safer for a long sea voyage than repeatedly firing up a galley stove specifically to brew coffee. According to the popularly repeated version of this history, Dutch traders operating throughout the Dutch East India Company's vast colonial and commercial network carried this cold steeping method with them across their trading routes, including into their long-established commercial presence in Japan, where the Dutch held a uniquely privileged and closely monitored trading relationship with Japanese authorities for over 2 centuries, operating almost exclusively through the small, artificially constructed island trading post of Dejima in Nagasaki Harbor, one of the only points of official contact between Japan and the Western world during Japan's long period of national isolation. It is worth being clear about the state of the historical evidence here, because this origin story, while widely repeated and genuinely plausible given what we know about 17th century maritime conditions, exists more as popular coffee industry lore than as a claim backed by extensively documented primary historical sources, specifically confirming Dutch sailors inventing cold brewing for this precise reason. What is much more solidly documented is that a distinctive cold coffee brewing tradition did take root and develop specifically in Japan, becoming closely associated with the region historically connected to that Dutch trading presence, and that this Japanese tradition evolved over subsequent centuries into something far more refined and deliberate than a simple wartime or shipboard survival technique. That evolved tradition is what coffee professionals today generally call Kyoto-style cold brew, though it is more precisely known within Japan as mizudashi coffee or water drip coffee. Rather than the bulk steeping method most Western cold brew production uses today, where coarsely ground coffee simply sits submerged in a large volume of cold water for an extended period before being filtered, traditional Kyoto-style cold brew uses an elaborate, slow drip apparatus, often strikingly beautiful glass towers with multiple chambers, where cold water is released 1 drop at a time, sometimes at a rate of roughly 1 drop per second, falling steadily through a bed of coffee grounds over a process that can take several hours to complete for a single batch. This method produces a noticeably different result compared to bulk immersion cold brewing, generally described by coffee professionals as cleaner, more delicately layered, and less heavy or syrupy than the bolder, more intensely concentrated flavor typical of bulk steeped cold brew. A meaningful technical distinction that has become increasingly important as cold brew has exploded into a global specialty coffee category over the past 2 decades. The elaborate drip towers associated with this method did not emerge directly from any 17th century shipboard practice. The distinctive glass drip tower apparatus is generally understood to be a later refinement, developed and popularized specifically within Japan over the following centuries as the country's coffee culture matured, particularly gaining prominence
Here is your
through
classic cold brew.
Kyoto-specific coffeehouse culture. A tradition where
This is a
visual
really great
presentation,
workspace.
precision, and ritual matter as much as flavor itself. Values deeply consistent with broader Japanese culinary
Here
and
is your
tea
cold
ceremony
brew.
traditions
Enjoy.
that prize careful, deliberate process alongside final result. Whether or not the original impulse toward cold extraction specifically traces back to Dutch sailors, avoiding open flame at sea, the elaborate, patient drip method that eventually came to define this coffee tradition is unambiguously a distinctly Japanese refinement, reflecting cultural values around craftsmanship that transformed what may have begun as a practical maritime workaround into a genuinely different, deliberately artisanal beverage category in its own right. For most of the 20th century, cold brew coffee in any form remained a relatively niche product outside Japan and a small number of specialty coffee circles elsewhere, largely overshadowed globally by iced coffee, which is simply hot brewed coffee cooled and poured over ice. A fundamentally different and much faster preparation method that produces a noticeably different flavor profile, typically more acidic and sometimes described as slightly bitter compared to cold brew's naturally smoother, lower acid character. A difference directly attributable to how heat during extraction affects which compounds are pulled from the coffee grounds. That began changing dramatically starting in the early 2000s, when cold brew coffee experienced an explosive surge in commercial popularity across the United States and subsequently much of the rest of the world. Major coffee chains, most notably Starbucks, began introducing dedicated cold brew products to their menus starting around 2015, and independent specialty coffee shops across American cities had already begun featuring cold brew prominently in the years immediately preceding that mainstream corporate adoption, helping drive broader consumer awareness and demand. The beverage's naturally smoother, less acidic flavor profile, combined with its convenient extended shelf life once brewed, since cold brew concentrate can typically be refrigerated and kept fresh for a week or more, made it an increasingly attractive product for both large chains seeking new premium beverage categories and smaller shops looking to differentiate their cold beverage offerings from simple iced coffee. That commercial explosion has also generated its own economics worth understanding. Cold brew's slow extraction process requires significantly more time, and often a substantially higher ratio of coffee grounds to water compared to standard hot brewing methods, meaning the raw ingredient cost per serving is generally higher for cold brew than for regular hot or iced coffee made from the same beans. That higher input cost, combined with strong consumer demand and the product's positioning as a premium specialty item, has generally translated into cold brew being priced noticeably higher on menus than standard hot or iced coffee options at most coffee retailers. A markup that reflects genuine cost differences in production, even as the finished beverage itself, once prepared, requires essentially no active labor or heating equipment at the point of sale. What began, according to popular and plausible but not fully documented maritime lore, as a practical 17th century workaround for brewing coffee safely aboard wooden sailing ships evolved, through centuries of refinement within Japan's distinctive coffee culture, into an elaborate, deliberately artisanal brewing tradition built around patience and precision rather than survival. That tradition eventually crossed back into mainstream Western coffee culture, and within roughly a single decade, transformed from a niche specialty item into one of the most commercially significant and widely marketed beverage categories in the entire modern coffee industry. Its origin story quietly rooted in colonial trade routes, open flame restrictions on wooden ships, and centuries of Japanese culinary refinement, far removed from the story most consumers imagine when they order one today. If this story surprised you, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Drop a comment and tell us what everyday drink you want us to investigate next.